it is top of the hour, a few minutes past. We are going to officially start this, our first webinar for FlexSpace Nation. We just launched FlexSpace Nation at ISS with Michael and Cody. It was very exciting, and we had a tremendous amount of interest. In fact, the interest was so great that we decided to have this webinar right away. First, I'll ask the question I think is on the top of everyone's mind. So what is FlexSpace Nation? We are leading the FlexSpace movement for developers, investors, operators, suppliers, anyone interested in growing a community to facilitate the growth and opportunity in FlexSpace, in which we are seeing great demand and huge opportunities, many of which Cody and Michael can share with you because they have been in this space for a long time. Their expertise is absolutely phenomenal, and we're delighted to have them among our first strategic partners in FlexSpace Nation. And Cody and Michael will be our speakers today, along with James Reid, who's going to kick it off here in a few minutes by answering another question that's on the top of your head. What is FlexSpace? I see everyone still adding where they're from into the chat. That's awesome. We have Los Angeles and Oklahoma. Russell from Sarasota. That is great. Hey, Russell, how you doing? Been a long time. So I'm going to share my screen and we will get started with our content today. So our agenda, we've introduced the speakers, James, myself, Michael, and Tran. We will cover what is FlexSpace. We're going to take a look at the numbers and the data and break it down so you can understand supply, demand, and other important dynamics. What are the growth drivers? What are the different types of FlexSpace? Building methods in FlexSpace, how it compares to self-storage, and what is FlexSpace Nation's next event coming soon. So now I'd like to invite James Reid to take it from here with what is FlexSpace.
Well, thank you, Anne-Marie, and good morning and good afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to be on the call today. As Anne-Marie had mentioned, that we just launched FlexSpace Nation, and we're excited to share more information about what is FlexSpace. And as we continue to read the word flex, we think things that are flexible, correct? So let me just walk you through this. Imagine yourself walking through a warehouse, wide open space, and you start to divide up in smaller spaces to really tailor towards the client's needs to give them that flexibility in the flex space. Typically, it's a 90% warehouse with about 10% office space and a small restroom. It's really designed to foster small businesses and companies using that space. And we talk about the several asset classes. This could range from office, retail, all the way up to warehouse space. And that's what makes it such a great asset class, because it covers so much broad from all of our client base. Give me an example. One of our current developments, we have a YouTuber in a unit, a plumber, a cabinetry maker, a reseller on Amazon, and a car detail company as well. And so you've really hit a lot of different asset classes. And so when you're going to market and to lease these properties, you have such a broad reach on your clientele that can come into your marketplace. You know, these buildings are designed to be adaptable. As I shared with you, typically it's a clear span construction, and it gives you the flexibility to truly build these units out to meet the needs of the drivers in your market. I know Cody and Michael will share more about some of those drivers here in a little bit, but globally, FlexSpace is truly a flexible warehouse that can house multiple different businesses towards the market trends in your immediate marketplace. As we look into the next slide as well, here for us, one moment, here we go. You can see here, there's also different types of FlexSpace designs. We have some retail, a little bit more industrial. You can see here in the photos that it's really driven towards kind of your smaller business, contractor, plumber, retail location. And as you build these or buy these, your market will kind of determine, is it more heavy on the resident, more heavy on the retail, or more on the industrial? And that's what's great about a market study. Will provide with you your different aspects. Especially when it comes to FlexSpace tenants, we had talked about it's mainly commercial tenants. And as you all know, small business is about 99.9% of the businesses in the US. And small businesses employ half of the workforce. And I believe that Small business is truly the backbone of America. And so when we're out building FlexSpace, it's a product that supports our economic development throughout our country and provides spaces for businesses to grow and continue to expand. And other recent studies we've had is that 44% of our gross profit or gross product come from the small businesses of America. So it's a great niche. It's a great opportunity to get into the space for flex space. And when we look at as an investment, so we talk about the top cross asset investment because it's reaching retail, office, warehouse. You're reaching such a vast mass of investments across the asset classes. We talked about FlexSpace Nation join the movement. There's a lot of assets moving into Flex because of how much ground it covers throughout the asset classes. Even myself, I'm coming from the storage industry, moving heavily into the Flex space as well, and very excited for what this space has for us. I had mentioned that there's a very large pool of tenants and then the low operating cost and also a faster cash flow perspective. I've noticed that when we open our facilities, it's a much quicker lease up than your traditional self-storage facility as well. And as a tenant moves in, as any business, they're typically signing a 1 to 5 year lease. And so it's a very low turnover. Once a company moves in the space, they make it home, they get set up. They don't really want to leave that space for a very long time, which is great for us into the asset class. When you're referring to the kind of the learning curve, right? Some of us are new to the industry. We're on this call today. What is truly flex space? And ultimately, it's a very easy learning curve of what the space really is. Landlord-wise, it's friendly, especially if you're looking at a triple net lease. A triple net lease typically includes your property taxes, your property insurance, maintenance around the facility. And if you create a triple net lease to your tenants, they contribute to those expenses and spread across your facility, lowering your expenses and hiring your NOI with your property, especially from a sale perspective. And Cody and Mike can speak a lot to this as well with the resilience through COVID. A lot of your small contractors, small businesses did very well during COVID and continued to thrive. So from a perspective on that is very good to hear as well. And then when I think about self-storage, flex space to me is about 15 to 20 years ago. Today, we're heavily institutionalized with private equity and REITs, where flex is not yet. It's still in a very growth mindset, growth mentality. And so in the future, it will be taking place of some of the private equity and some REITs. So we're really getting into the flex market at a really great time to be able to explore every option and also increase our returns of our investments. And then if you'd like, we have a couple surveys coming up here as well, but hopefully give you some feedback. And throughout the message today too, please don't hesitate to put in the chat some questions in the Q&A, and we'll make sure we'll have time at the end of the call as well.
James, thank you very much.
Absolutely.
Sorry, do we have an echo?
I'm not sure if that's on me or not. I think it's off.
It looks like these questions are coming in. That's great.
Sure are.
A lot of people from a lot of different sectors joining us. That's great. Investors, operators, builders. If you scroll down or expand the size of the survey window, you'll see that there's some other options on the bottom there. So James, I've had some people wondering how they could become strategic partners. Would you mind sharing with folks how
I sure can. Just like today, we have Cody and Michael on the call. Our FlexSpace Nation gathering place. Our goal is to continue to come together as a community and bring on strategic partners as we have this webinar and different live events. And so if you are a vendor or someone who wants to be a strategic partner where we can share information to our audience space, our goal is to continue to educate and provide value on all sectors of the flex space. So if you are someone who wants to be part of our strategic partnerships to get in front of our audience, they're welcome to go to our website, flexspacenation.com, and they'll just apply for a strategic partnership with our group. There's no cost to the strategic partnership or also the attendees. Our goal is truly to drive value each and every day in events like today for our gathering place.
So as we build that network of strategic partners, people will have a place to come to find expertise in commercial insurance or in tenant protection or tenant insurance, expertise from brokers, from builders, from architects. We even talked to someone who is an expert on zoning, and he will be a great asset to our organization. I believe he's out of the Dallas-Fort Worth area. So we have a lot coming soon in that regard. I believe we have concluded the poll. Annie, if you can publish the results. Yes, it looks like 41% are not yet in FlexSpace. 28% of you are investors, and 31% are operator owners. 10% are brokers, 23% builders, and we have a non-supplier vendor with us as well. Well, that's great. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. And now we are going to introduce Michael Tran and Cody Payne, who are with Colliers International, and they have started Flex Parks USA, and they will be sharing the data with us. Cody and Michael, take it.
Good deal. Thank you guys for having us here today. I guess I'll kick this one off. So just so y'all know, so my name's Cody Payne. Obviously, this is Michael Tran. Rick, what's up, man? I see you. So we're actually with Colliers International. We specialize in selling small bay flex industrial parks. We work all across the U.S. We're based out of DFW. But I've been doing this since probably 2005. I know everybody's probably thinking you look way too young, which I do appreciate that. I appreciate James and Ann and Annie having us come on. They wanted us to kind of provide some stats and things that we're seeing in the market, not just locally or regionally, but kind of more on a national scale. And one thing that I can tell people, even though our main forte is the selling of small bay industrial parks, we also do a lot of site analysis work as well. So if anybody's ever looking at a site and wants an analysis done on it to see, how it does for small bay flex, love to connect with you. We do those for free, absolutely no issues. So love to provide value that way. But I'm going to go over just some national stats here. And obviously, if anybody, what I always say, if you want something that is more localized, which I always say to do, especially if you're really eyeing a piece of land, obviously you don't want to go off of a huge trend. You really want to narrow that down, and that's something we can do. And we're big fans. I'll tell you, me, Tran, Austin, Jacob, all the guys here, we're big fans of real-time data. So we are constantly updating everything that we have, so that anybody that's looking to build or buy can have the right information to make the best decision possible from their investment standpoint. So currently across the U.S., there's about 3 billion square feet of flex. I will tell you, a lot of that is going to range. Some of that's going to be R&D, maybe a little bit on the higher side. Some may have a true 50-50 office component to it. And so obviously each state varies. As far as the under construction number, that number I think is actually a little low. It's actually hard to track because in the counties and certain suburbs, you're not pulling permits and things of that nature. And so sometimes that number that we get lags behind a little bit. As far as the vacancy rate goes, you're sitting at about 6.7% on a national average. One thing to keep in mind is each state obviously runs a little bit different, but also with small bay flex is it's built to spec. And saying that, meaning when it's built, it's usually not leased until it's on the ground and running. And so you do have a lot of vacancy that hits the market at one time, and then it obviously gets leased up from there. So if you take the spec stuff out, you're honestly probably sitting closer to 5%. Some markets are doing better than that. As far as the market asking rent across the nation, you're sitting at $16.91. That is a gross number. That's not a triple net number. That's a gross number. But a good key thing here is I'd probably say over the past, 16, 20 quarters, that number has continuously gone up every quarter and done very, very good. Along with the same is market sale price per square foot. That number has obviously continued to go up as well over the past several years. So, that's obviously good to see. Another stat that I know James likes a lot, and quite a few other people do, is the asset value by ownership side. You've got 75% that's actually privately owned, and it's not on here, but about 20% of that is owner user, meaning, somebody built a park to operate their business out of, but they also use it as an investment. So you got 75% is private ownership, 4% private equity, and then 21% that is owned by institutional money. Each state's going to vary. There are some states that are heavier in the institutional side, some that are not as much. And then the next one, the graph to the bottom right, is the market cap rate by star rating. Star rating is the quality of project. Obviously, like with any commercial real estate asset, the higher quality, the lower the cap rate, lower quality, the higher the cap rate. So I think we will I think Tran's up on the next one. Sorry, Tran, I was taking the screen up there on you.
There we go. So to go into the nitty gritty a little bit more about what Cody's talking about on a national level, like we say, we're tracking all the data nationwide. And what we're really looking for is where is the best areas to really develop this kind of stuff, or where to buy, right? And so that's why that location criteria is just so high on that list, because you want to make sure your pro forma on these has a very healthy rental rate renewal number where you can, essentially get maybe 20, 30% more on your rate versus some other markets that may be oversupplied, and you're only going to be able to either renew at the same rate or lower. Also, being location dependent, triple net leases are not common everywhere yet. These are small business owners, so you kind of have to walk them through how the triple net lease structure is done. But once you get past that and you're in a market that can support it, that's one thing that really drives value in these, because, for example, self-storage right now, you guys are seeing no triple net leases and much lower price per square foot and a lot heavier traffic at your storage facilities. So market, same thing. You want to make sure that you're in a high growth market that has a lot of rooftops coming in, or you have a very high pocket income area that can really utilize a flex space or a higher end showroom space for those business owners that don't really want to drive into the city. And with these things all combined, it really gets you to your cap rate. Unfortunately, flex is not like self-storage or a retail Starbucks or Chipotle that you can buy anywhere at the same rate of return everywhere. All of them are very different, and you have to consider almost all these factors plus supply and demand coming into a market prior to really pricing it correctly. But one way you can really do that is the amenities here to the right. And these aren't in any particular order. I will say these are heavily preferred by higher end family office investment funds out of California are looking at this, and also your institutions. They love to have all these 8 things listed here. So if you are looking to develop a park, or if you're looking at buying one or several to portfolio later on down the road, these are several things that I would heavily consider when you're looking at investing in FlexSpace. Next slide.
It's my time.
Your turn.
My time to shine, baby. Okay. Let's see. So tenant growth drivers. A lot of people always ask us, what is driving, these parks to be so successful? Because, I'll tell you, I always tell people, when I started 20 years ago, I mean, it was nowhere near as popular as it is today. The economic drivers were a little bit different. The average tenant size was substantially larger than it is today, along with the ideal tenant size. And so there's a lot of things that kind of make up these drivers and tenant demands. And they've also become a lot more diversified over the past 4, 5, 7 years, as well, as compared to when I first got started. It was all just a contractor base, electricians, plumbers, things of that nature. And, as Tran was saying, it's not uncommon to see, retail guys in here, office guys, showroom, people of that nature. It's not just light industrial contractor use. So, the surge in trades and subcontractors, obviously that's a huge driver. A lot of those guys you're going to see in areas where there's a lot of growth, a lot of new home construction. things of that nature. Obviously, the Sun Belt, we're huge believers in the Sun Belt. We like any state that's in the Sun Belt, but also the expansion of people going to the suburbs and second tier markets. Those are experiencing a lot of growth as well, and a high need for it as well. And obviously, with the metros getting larger, you also have a big increase in regional and satellite locations as well. So that's another driver. Is this my slide, Tran?
Yep.
I'll take it. So location sensitive trades, obviously, when you got plumbers, HVAC, pest control, pool service, those are all very localized businesses. And so that's one of the things that they do so well in. And so, it's not uncommon to have, those people in each pockets, especially around major metros. As far as the entrepreneurial standpoint, that's where you got all these e-commerce guys and other people coming into it, people coming out of garages and storage units. I mean, it's a very friendly entry point for entrepreneurs to come in, and also if you build it the right way, it can be very flexible for these guys to expand or downsize if need be. And then the biggest thing that we've seen is the shift from office retail to flex. And so in the past, I'll tell you, we'd never see a retailer or an office business in these parks, and now it's very common for us to sell them with these guys in there. And obviously, we're not talking about like a TJ Maxx or somebody in one of these parks. We're talking about a lot more localized retail, bakeries, things of that nature. Commercial kitchens are huge in them, and so obviously that depends on your type of build, which I think Tran is going to go over next.
Yeah, and also one thing to add on to what Cody's saying is, while yeah, we track all this data, we can put all this stuff into, all these models and stuff, and we can't predict the future with this data, but one thing we can really track with, a growing suburb or just flex in general is you're tracking where everybody's moving, right? And so the Sun Belt, you can see, how many U-Haul vans are coming to the Sun Belt states and not going back. And that's one thing that has really helped this asset class in the last 5 years. Okay, so the types of flex that we've got here, they all vary. And, kind of what I was talking about earlier was, how do we really determine who we're selling these assets to, or how do you know what to build and where? With the data that we have and the stuff that we use to track rental rates, supply and demand, how much supply is coming to a market, that really helps us determine the type of build you should do at any site that you have. So when we're looking at our efficient model, that's obviously, easiest to get into, but also the easiest to replicate, which is kind of what I touched on earlier when you're saying, okay, I'm going into this market, but there's so much of this stuff. How do I really differentiate myself? You can still do very well in an efficient model as long as you have the amenities to differentiate yourself from everybody else in that market. And we have so many case studies on this kind of stuff where, hey, this park is literally on the same street, but they can only achieve $9 to $10 gross, right? And then you have the same type of build, but with the side yard amenity on that same road, and they're getting $14 triple net. So there is a way for you to still do very well in the efficient build. It's just about building to the market. The showroom style build is becoming more popular. There's not a lot of it right now, but we've been seeing a lot more developers get into this space that, hey, this is really easy to dress up just a little bit, and maybe the higher ceilings being added on really opens up your tenant pool. One thing we really like about that is, if you're at 23, 24 foot clear, you're able to really target tenants that are more, I would say, like sport based. So recently, a few parks we've seen trade have a badminton facility, pickleball courts, basketball training facilities, baseball. Your CrossFitters love it too.
I don't know who plays badminton, but
people in McKinney. But so it's becoming more popular. They can pay a little bit higher rates, and they're avoiding the retail rates that last I checked for good locations, you're paying no less than, $38 plus triple net. Triple nets here around where we are run anywhere from 12 to 16 bucks, just depending on the market. So I don't know how sustainable that is for a lot of tenants, but one thing is, Flex has been an option since, we had a Domino's reach out to us for, we had a premium space, but Domino's reached out and, they're like, hey, we just service a zip code, right? And within that zip code, we don't really need the frontage because they just kind of Google and then call and then deliver, right? So we are seeing a shift in tenants looking to cheaper alternatives, which this is perfect for that. Your premium style build, you're going to see, higher end office users look at these. They're trying to escape, riding elevators, not having to park in a garage, walk all the way over to the office space. It's just becoming a really good option for those higher end office users that, hey, I've got a showroom, or, I'm now able to, an example of this is over by Toyota's headquarters that's moved over here to Plano. There's a lot of premium showroom flex style space. They sell parts to Toyota and they're a supplier for them. They're bringing them in, showing them all the product, selling there on the showroom floor. And, they have the space to use that, plus a mezzanine space for their office as well. The condo model is very, very unique. You have to have the right demographics for a condo, and you have to make sure you're very careful when you're doing a condo, is because when you have this, you want to make sure that you're not stuck with the last 2 or 3 in the back that have very little visibility. But there are markets that do this very well, similar to like a man cave or a Garages of America. You're seeing these guys build this up. You'll get your, CEO, executive that wants to store, I guess you could say, toys, cars, and just have a place to maybe escape. Is what we're seeing a lot of these condos cater to. But you really, really have to make sure that the market can support the condo model. Even though you recoup your money a lot faster by selling your condos off, at the end of the day, you may have to manage a condo association, and then you don't want everybody in your park to potentially cannibalize each other by, hey, I've got this condo, I'm moving out, I'm leasing it for X amount, and then, Tom next door, hey, I'm moving out as well. I'm gonna lease it for less than my neighbor here, and then it just becomes competition within a condo park. So, like I said, just be very careful, but it does work in the right areas. And I think that is our section.
Thank you. That was great, Cody and Michael. We're going to launch another poll right now asking you, what are the top 3 most important things you'd like to learn more about? And in the meantime, we have some questions. I see that Bill has a question. His hand is raised. So Bill Canadas, if you'd like to ask your question. Do we have Bill? While Bill is coming on, I will ask Terry Campbell's question. He asked, are there FlexSpace feasibility study experts? Cody, Michael?
Yes, and I can send you a contact to Small Bay Feasibility Co. that we also work with over here.
That's helpful.
Yeah.
Those are worth the weight in gold. A good feasibility study saves you from a lot of mistakes. We have another question. What is the showroom rent running in the Dallas-Fort Worth area?
Jim, that number is going to depend on the area. You've got I'll give you an example. So if you go to South Fort Worth, you're probably gonna be $12 plus net. You go to McKinney, you can be 18, 19. You go to parts of Argyle, you can be 20, 21. So it really all depends. I can give you a range, but if you got a area that you're a little more keen on, just let us know and I can give you a better rate at that point.
So like self-storage, it's quite dependent on the local market?
Yeah.
Okay. So Bill, I know that you're looking for your microphone, and if you found it, now's a good time, but we also have another person with their hand raised. Annie, maybe you can help us let that person know.
Hi, hello.
Great.
I have a question. What is usually the buy box, or what type of demographic, flag space should be? What size of plot you should look for? What size of how many section of flag space and what each section is supposed to be?
Great. Thank you.
So yeah, no, I appreciate that. We get that question a lot. I mean, that's really going to be more of your preference. I mean, a lot of times I'll tell you what we're seeing is when people buy a plot of land, they're able to achieve around 30, maybe 35% lot coverage. So, I mean, I'll tell you some of the parks that we like to see that we like to sell and trade and our guys like to lease is going to be around 45 to 75,000 square feet. So that's, one of the more ideal sizes to operate, run, and for us to trade as an investment. So, that can be, 4, 5, 6 acres.
Great. And that's a subject we can certainly explore at great length. I anticipate we'll have some content and webinars on that coming soon. It looks like we have everyone responding. And so, Annie, if you could publish the results from this poll. We have a great deal of interest in supply, demand, and competition, in development and construction, followed by financial returns and lease-up pro forma, followed by financing, and then due diligence, and the buy box, which we've just had a question on, and exit plans, always important. All right. Great. So now we are going to invite James Reid back to talk about FlexSpace building methods.
One of my favorite topics. One, Michael and Cody, great job, because I think the big component walking into this building perspective is what to build, right? It's very important to understand, is it more your industrial, more your retail? And that's what's great about our network here, is to continue to work with each other. I'll give you an example. One of my very first Flex products, I actually combined it with self-storage. And that is something that you do not want to do. You want to make sure that you keep your Flex product truly separate on a separate parcel of ground. That way you're going to get the greatest return from a Flex buyer that buys Flex and the greatest buyer who buys self-storage. And coming from the storage background, I'm learning. All of us are learning on this call as well. But that's what's important to come together as this gathering place where we're not going to hold back. Hopefully you can learn from our mistakes, learn from our successes and what we're doing. And so I just want to give a little bit of groundwork of some of the construction methods to keep an eye out for when you're out looking for property. You can see here on this development, we have kind of more a little bit of a hybrid, kind of a retail design aspect where you have your retail style garage doors and man doors. This development did do very well because this was a separate parcel. And then they did self-storage on the backside of the property on a completely different property. So this would be a good example if you really do want to do flex and storage nearby. This would be a good model to model after. Something to keep in mind too is something I learned from Michael and Cody was there's properties out there that they build to the max and they forget about parking. And there's some developments out there that aren't leasing up completely because they did not consider all the parking needs. So it's very important to make sure that you account for parking. You can see here in this design, we have some overflow parking on the front side and 2 overflow parkings on the back. Typically, and Michael, you might be able to, or Cody, I believe we recommend about for every 1,000 square feet, it's about a parking stall. Is that what we recommend out there?
I mean, I'll tell you, I'd like to see it at least 2 to 3, in my opinion.
2 to 3. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
I
Absolutely.
like 3, but no less than 2.
Fantastic. No, it's true. It's very important to have that type of parking for your development. As you can see in this building here, as you zoom in, we do recommend all the utilities to be separately metered. You want your tenant bases to truly be on their own meters for their paying their utilities. And also when you go to sell this asset, you don't want additional maintenance or overhead from operation trying to configure out the utility bills. Something else to consider here, you can see here we have 4 buildings. We truly recommend a 12,000 square foot building. In most cities and counties, 12,000 square feet, you do not need a firewall or a sprinkler system, which is great because it lowers your cost basis in the project. Typically, if you go over 12,000, you do need to put a firewall or a sprinkler system in that design for us there. As we go over to the next screen, here is you can kind of see our original design and what the project turned out to be, very similar to what our design looked like on paper for this development. In most cases, you want a clear span building. Once in a while, you might have one or two poles within the design, but ultimately you want a clear span construction. What that means is the outer shell contains the strength and support of the building, allowing you to build demising walls throughout the building. So if a tenant comes to you and says, I'd like to have unit 1, 2, and 3, you just build out that demising wall, giving them the space that they're looking to have. A better perspective on that would probably be this next slide here. You have a tenant that's just wanting one bay. They requested to have a little bit of office space and a small restroom on the backside of their unit, where in this case, this tenant wanted 2 bays, and on his front walkway, he wanted a little bit of office space and a small restroom. So this is kind of the global perspective of what you may walk into a flex development. Very open. Most of the space is going to be your warehouse, 90% of it, about 10% of it's going to be office space. You may have some tenant improvement, like you said, maybe a restroom or an office space, but overall, it's very clean and easy. You can see here, this was a much larger building. We had to go in with some sprinkler systems in this design here, but very good clear height. You can see here in this photo, this is your pre-engineered building. That way, when you walk into your facility, you truly can build these out. Michael and Cody, maybe you can speak to this as well. I believe is the average about 1,800 square feet that we're seeing on average, or what can you speak to that as well?
That's your largest tenant pool is going to be around 1,800 square feet. So that's why we like that number, because that gives you the largest and most diverse tenant base. Now, obviously, that number ranges pretty well between 1,500 and 2,200 square feet, but we like 1,800.
Fantastic. No, I thought the same thing, and it gives the flexibility, and as what's nice about the true flex in this asset is that this client continues to grow. This wall can be moved, and it can move to a double bay. That's what's so great about this flex product. Or if they are looking to downsize, they can go from a 1-2 unit down to 1 unit. And so it really advocates for a really good growth pattern for businesses that are growing and decreasing within the same property. So you might have a tenant that may spend 10, 20 years on your property because they have that flexibility. They're not locked into a space that's no longer working from them. You can really tailor your space to meet the needs of your client there. And then, as I mentioned earlier, I think a lot of us may be on the call today, especially speaking to myself, coming from the storage background, how does this really compare? What does this really look like from a comparison perspective? And there's very similar aspects, but there are some differences. I won't read all of this for you, but I just want to kind of read through some of the highlights. Also on our website, you can get a copy of this PDF for both of these next couple slides here. But in some markets, storage has softened, where self-storage is still very strong in most markets. And when we talk about supply in additional markets, there may be some oversupplied for self-storage, where we believe majority markets for flex is still in the growth pattern for opportunities to invest and to explore that market. From competitors, as you all know, the REITs are really driving on rates right now, and we can feel that at our store level, where your flex is still more of a mom and pop model. And mentioned earlier with Cody and Michael that 75% is still privately held facilities for flex. And when we go to market with our flex product, we see a much faster lease up period than our self storage. One of our developments, it seemed like it leased up in less than 3 months. As soon as we opened, we already had a waiting list. They were like banging down our doors to get in, which is a great feeling. And now we're already doing phase 2 on that development. In some markets, the rates are very comparable from self-storage and flex from a square footage perspective. With self-storage, it is more of a month to month, where flex typically is 1 year plus on your leases. Most of your tenant base for self-storage is retail, where flex is going to be more your business. And self-storage is truly it's a very mature asset class where flex is it's in its high school days, I guess you'd call it, or your growth model. And so giving us that great opportunity to expand while we have this opportunity. Location-wise, typically self-storage is really designed to be main on main, where flex has a little bit more flexibility of where it can truly be placed in the market share to build that need for your community. Zoning tends to be a little bit less hurdles with flex because it's typically off the main path slightly, a little bit different zoning, so it allows a little bit more flexibility for your additional building methods and requirements. Trade area for self-storage, 3 to 5 miles, where I would say flex is probably closer to 1 to 15 miles in your range of clientele that are using that flex space for your development. I had spoke earlier just a few moments ago about the building components. It's very similar construction from like metal aspect for both self-storage and flex. The biggest piece is that you do truly want to build a clear span construction where most storage is a component-based construction. So clear span is very important to give you that flexibility. Over to the next slide here. Operations, it's heavier with self-storage. Managers on site, where flex is a little bit lighter than other asset classes from a management perspective. Storage truly does have a mature market where they have a lot of third-party managements managing the facilities. Flex has not reached that point where we have a lot of third-party managements available yet. I do see that growing in the near future. Marketing, this has been unique. It's typically with self-storage, it's a lot of pay-per-click, where we've seen a lot of lease up through Facebook Marketplace. A lot of your small businesses are on Facebook promoting their businesses, and you can post an ad about your facility. Better yet, I'll give you a little tip as well. Before you go to buy or build Flex, put in an ad in the area that you're looking to build or buy, and you can get feedback, live feedback of the interest level in that marketplace. Let them know that it's coming soon and you're capturing interest in this location. That's another great way to get a tester before you go to build in that market as well. And ask questions of what they're looking for, what amenities, what side yards they want. So you can really do some live data opportunities as well. Some of the foreclosure laws varies by state for self-storage. Your flex is truly governed by the lease establishment that you have occurred. Pricing storage is all over the place. You have a lot of dynamic pricing with flex. There's really not dynamic. You kind of know the market that you're getting into. You know it's 16, 17, $18 rents, what it may be in that marketplace as you go to buy or develop. So it's a little bit more predictable of what's happening in the future for flex. Not as many opportunities for revenue, like additional revenue streams, but that's okay. You can build a few things inside the lease to force your rate increases throughout the years. And then the big thing for us is the expenses. Creating a triple net lease for your flex space provides an opportunity for your tenants to cover the expenses of the operations of your facility for flex, your insurance, your property tax assessment, your different maintenance to the facility as well. A lot of those can be added into your triple net leases. And then ownership, it's really consolidated with self-storage. Where we had the slide earlier from Michael and Cody, it's 75% still private. We are entering into this market at a very great time before it gets consolidated. On the exit, self-storage is really compressed at a lower cap rate, where the market maturity has not reached its full potential yet with flex, which is a great element, but some of the cap rates aren't as low as self-storage. And from an NOI, some expenses can affect that with self-storage. With the NOI with flex, you have more opportunities to share that cost across your tenant base, truly having your NOI at your gross rent potential on that facility. And I believe I'd love to talk about this next event. Over the season, over the years, we're going to continue to push out contact, continue to push out events. So I'd like to hand this over to Cody and Michael about the next event for FlexSpace in Dallas. So if you guys want to share a little bit more about this next event.
All right, guys. So we do have our next event. I know some of the people I actually see in the chat, some of the guys have been to this event that we had last year. It's a fun event. Really what it is we like to put on these networking events for people that are interested in the small bay flex space, but also we get a lot of developers, LP investors, new developers, existing owners. We have people from all across the country that come out to it. And at this one, we've got a few folks that will showcase some projects that they are working on and maybe raising money on as well. But it's, I think, one of the better networking events you can go to, because there's not a lot of them for Flex, but where you've got a lot of owners and operators all in one room. And it's a really cool venue, as Rick said in the comments. It's a really cool venue out in Dallas. A lot of cool exotic cars. I'm a big car guy, so I love it there. And like any Cody Payne and Michael Tran event, there's always free food and alcohol there. So obviously, demolish that as much as you can. But any questions on it, let us know. But we can get you in there, and love to see anybody there.
Will you give me a ride in those cars?
Well, I mean, I don't know any of those cars, but I've got a couple classics. I'll bring it out. Take it for a spin. But I did see Justin Fike. Anything on the East Coast this year? Actually, stay tuned. Maybe there may be something. We're actually working on a few more across the country. So I'll get your contacts and I can let you know.
I think you have
encouragement too. Go ahead, Anne Marie.
I was going to say, I think you have a registration code for this event on the next slide, Cody. If you'd like to go ahead and take a picture of that and brings them straight to the registration, then we can see you all live in Dallas. What were you going to say? I'm sorry, James.
No, I was going to mention if they wanted to screenshot any of these two on that image before, but this QR code goes right to the registration. Is a great place to set that up.
And we will be sharing this PowerPoint along with the recording after the webinar, because there's a lot to learn here. Went over a lot of information and we still have a number of questions. Shall we go on to the next slide and then maybe take some questions?
We sure can. I'm going to go back to this slide just for a moment. If anybody wanted to take a quick screenshot of that, just as a reference point, as a reminder for the upcoming Dallas event.
The food is very good, by the way.
It looks it.
Yeah, it's going to be a
They
great
have one of the best burgers around.
Yeah. We don't make it, so it's good.
We have that as our next live event. I did want to share that on FlexSpace Nation, we're trying to create every value that we can drive. And coming up in May 22nd of this month, we are creating a webinar to educate others how to use their self-directed IRA to invest in FlexSpace and self-storage, how to utilize your retirement accounts to invest or build or buy into these asset classes. So if you have others, yourselves, or others that you may know that want to learn how to tap into your capital of your retirement accounts, we're going to walk you through the process, what that looks like. Paul's going to do a great job on the webinar. You're welcome to take a photo of this as well, or even use the QR code to register. But it's a great way to really maximize your long-term returns with your retirement accounts. I've been doing it for about 10 years now, and it's been really great. There's ways that you can defer your taxes as well, long-term gains. So there's a lot of opportunities that you can learn on this podcast on the 22nd of May. So please stay tuned. As I mentioned, we're going to continue to drive value each and every time we have these calls, in person or webinars. But very, very thankful for the strategic partners that we have already so quickly on our FlexSpace Nation gathering place. So if you want to quickly take a screenshot of that or register there, would be great. And then Anne Marie, I think we could probably go ahead and open this up to some questions here.
And if you don't mind, I'm going to read some questions that have come in from the chat. And I see that there's already an answer to one of them. There was a question about software to run FlexSpace. And I see that QuickStore is modifying their software for use in FlexSpace. That's awesome. There'll probably be some others coming up as well. So thanks, Thaddeus, for sharing that information. And we had a question on can you provide a cost estimate to build a 10,000 square foot FlexSpace facility? I know that's one of those questions that will be answered. It depends. So I'm going to throw it out to you guys and
Yeah, I mean, I don't know the location or quality or size, but I've got good contacts that work all across the U.S. So just send us a note, and I'll put our email address, or actually here it's at the bottom of this slide. Just shoot me or Mike an email, and we can send you a good contact that'll get you a good price.
You can also scan this QR code that's on this slide, and it will take you to flexspacenation.com. In the upper right-hand corner, there's a yellow call to action button that says need help. And at any point in time, you can put your information in there. And you can, for instance, you might want to say something like, I hear Michael Tran has a model that can help me determine whether or not my location is a good one for FlexSpace. So we'd make sure Michael gets that and can respond to you on that. There was a lot of interest in that when we were in Vegas at ISS. We have another question about the commonalities between FlexSpace and self-storage. We've just gone over a lot of those. And are we finding people pivoting from self-storage to Flex? The interest expressed at ISS and of all of you here today tells us, yes, there are a lot of people who are exploring how to pivot from self-storage to Flex. James has already done so. I believe about a third, maybe 39% of people who are on this call are already in the flex space market, and a lot of them they've pivoted from one asset class to another, multifamily to self-storage to flex. So, the typical self-storage developer is the one who does a deal that makes sense as long as it makes sense. And when it doesn't make sense anymore, they walk away from it. And so that's what folks are doing. It makes sense to do flex right now because the demand is strong. And in some markets, self-storage has softened. So there's a lot of incentive. There are a lot of attractive features of this market, like the fact that it is not yet institutionalized. And we can really ride that up just as folks did in self-storage and are doing now in RV Boat. It's the same thing's going to happen as flex space matures. And we have a question from Michael and Cody. How do I know if my land site is a good location for flex?
Yeah, so for each site, they all vary, but you have our contact information below. Feel free to send us a survey and make sure you just kind of let us know like where the zoning is on it, or if you know what the largest building size you can put on prior to the triggering the sprinkler code on it. That's one thing you guys really need to be careful on as well, is finding out each county's maximum building size before you have to put in fire suppression. That's a huge cost that a lot of people do not think about initially. But yeah, just send us your site and where it's at with the survey, and we'll get you an idea of if it makes financial sense to build.
Great. Hey, James, we'd like you to take a question, please. How long does it take to build flex space from purchasing land to completing construction?
That's a great question. So when we go into taking a piece of property under contract, we always recommend about a 6 months time period to truly get all your approvals throughout the city. You want to make sure that you have the proper zoning. If you don't have the proper zoning, what does it take to get the proper zoning and the approvals? One thing you want to avoid is buying a piece of property that's not entitled. So when you go under contract, make sure that you build in extensions and wording that allows you to back out of the contract if the city does not approve your development. We typically recommend 6 to 9 months of time within your contract to be able to achieve that. I think most land sellers understand it takes time for a development. So a land contract typically is longer period than if you're just buying a building. I always recommend buying extensions, even if it's going to cost you some money. You don't want to be at the last hour not able to truly have your development worked out. So let's say that's a 6 month process. I would say another probably good solid 10 to 12 months for development. Your biggest unknown is going to be your site work. As you all see, when you look at a piece of property, you might see grass, but what's underneath the dirt? Your biggest unknowns are going to be in your dirt work and site work, for drainage to feasibilities to environmental concerns. So your biggest unknown, probably the largest cost of the project that's hard to budget, is going to be your site work. So I always recommend working with a local civil engineer. He understands the dirt more than anybody in the area. Even if you have your own person locally, always recommend working with a local civil engineer to help you through that process. So hopefully that gives you some direction there. But that's the direction that we take. Most of our developments have been ground up. We've done some conversions into warehouses into Flex as well. And with our construction, BBI constructors, we do a lot of site layout and a lot of upfront work at no cost to kind of help guide our clients. So if there is anybody on the call that's needing some site layout or just some maybe guidance, we'd be glad to help you in that process to make sure we're steering you in the right directions for BBI constructors.
Great. Well, we are approaching the top of the hour. Thank you, everyone, for participating. This has been a great, informative session. I would like to just make the statement that among the three Anne-Marie DeCosters who appear on this panel, I am the only real one. The rest are imposters, but they do an excellent impression of themselves. Cody Payne and Michael Tran, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you for lending your expertise, not only to FlexSpace Nation, but to everyone who has expressed interest. I know that they'll be very responsive in answering your questions. And James and I, on our part with FlexSpace Nation, we're also with Investa Capital. James is the CEO and founder of our companies, which include a construction company as well as management companies for FlexSpace and for self-storage. So thank you very much, everyone. Keep your eyes open for the email you'll get from us with the recording as well as the slide deck, and watch for further communication, not only on our website, but in your inbox about future events. And we sure hope to see you live in Dallas in July, as well as virtually on Zoom in 2 weeks for the SDIRA conference. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll have a wonderful day.
Thank
Thanks,
you,
everybody.
everybody. See ya.
Thank you.